Easy Explain, Introduction to the Philosophy of History by G.W.F. Hegel, Chapter 6, The Division of History, the big finale here, the final chapter of this project. And we're going to start to come full circle, at least compared to where we started to in the intro. First starting out with a passage here from Hegel. Hegel says here, to understand this division, we must note the following. The state is the universal spiritual life, to which the individuals who are born into it relate with trust and habitual acceptance so that they have their essence and their actuality in it. So what Hegel's saying here is essentially that, the state is we've already gone over this, it's the largest manifestation of the spirit. And when you're born into it as an individual, you are of it, right? You are of that time, you're of that place, you're of that manifestation of history as spirit, right? So you don't always really think anything of it, you are a product of your epoch. But then to get into a concept we first saw in our intro, actually, if we go all the way back to the beginning of the series, looking at some key concepts from Hegel, and looking at the worlds or the world outlooks, as sometimes it's translated by him. It's just these phases throughout world history where we can really define them based on the degree of freedom that we as a people had. So the first one, Hegel calls it the Oriental world or world outlook, and that's essentially, think of ancient cultures, ancient societies and civilizations like ancient Egypt, ancient China, etc. And here the degree of freedom was only with one person, and think of like a monarch, right? I just took this directly from our intro. Then for Hegel we moved on to the Greco-Roman world, where now we have some people are free, right? Largely men and some kind of aristocracy or oligarchy of people. There's still slavery though, so slaves aren't free, and unfortunately women are still not free in the Greco-Roman worlds or world outlooks. And then for Hegel, we have the Germanic world, which is essentially Christian Europe at the time, where he's arguing that all people are free, or they're in the, more of an immediate process of becoming free. So it's here in this chapter, in chapter 6, that he really gets a little bit deeper into these and fully fleshes them out and explains them. So I'll provide a little bit more of those details as we go through them step by step below. So the first division of history, again, this is the Oriental world. Hegel describes this as the childhood of history. Again, where there's really only one free individual or one free power here. Think of the monarch or the despot. Moving on to the second division of history, this is the Greek world, ancient Greece. So there is a little bit of a divide here when we go step by step through it. This moves into the adolescence of history, and we start to see some freedom. He also ties this to the rise of beauty, the rise of aesthetics, and the rise of ethics. So those are big values to start to see in the world for the first time. Third division, moving to the Roman Empire. He describes that as the adulthood of history, right? So it's pretty fully formed. And we have some free individuals. But also at this time, we see the rise of the common good, the rise of the greater good, right? A much larger ethical scope. We start to have a universal perspective versus as contrasted to individuality, right? Just being an individual, we as individuals can think of the greater good. We can think of universals and the bigger world at this point. And finally, we arrive at the fourth division of history, which is the Germanic world. Hegel's taken a lot of liberties here, being a German. He's really playing favorites. He's really playing a favoritism here. So he describes this as the old age or the ripeness of history, where all individuals are free. Maybe put an asterisk on that. There maybe for Hegel, they're more in the immediate vicinity of becoming free. And here he's saying this is when spirit is returning to unity with itself. It's when it's coming to that self-actualization, that self-realization. Hegel thinks it's there with Germany in 1822. But to be fair, he also said America was the land of the future. So, we know that history and spirit have this kind of cyclical, very large scale, to put in air quotes, life cycle. So, it's just for the moment, I guess you could say. We'll get to the moment in a second again. Another passage from Hegel in this final chapter, Hegel says, freedom has now found the tools with which to realize its concept, its truth in the world, right? This full self-actualization. And here's a little bit on time, right? He started talking about time a little bit in the last chapter, how the unfolding of spirit is something that occurs in time. And here's a good parting passage from Hegel. He says, this is the goal of world history, and we have now to traverse in detail the long road which we have presented here only in summary. But the length of time is something entirely relative, whereas spirit belongs to the dimension of eternity and has no actual length. So us as individuals, us as humans, we're experiencing this through time. We experience history in time. But for the force behind all of this, for spirit itself, time is nothing, right? Think of the moments, think of the epochs. If we were spirit, this would be something of a totally different perspective, and that's something Hegel's pointing out here. So sure, it seems like this grand project to us, but to spirit it is nothing, just a final spiritual perspective to consider there. So that's the end of chapter 6. That's the end of Hegel's intro to the philosophy of history, and I hope this helps.